think we still have a few seconds to 8 p.m., but I think we can get started. Hi everyone, thanks everyone for joining today's panel. My name is Sohn, and I'm going to be the moderator for today's discussion. I am one of the volunteers for the Yale Career Panel Committee, and just to give you a little bit of context of what we do, Yale Career Panel was first launched in 2012 by a group of volunteers from Yale, including Peter. And since then, we have hosted series of panels to provide a candid view on multiple professions to help current and alums to make informed career decisions. Today, we have 4 amazing panelists with us to talk about K-12 teaching profession. Our panelists are really diverse. They represent background from different states to various schools, from public, private to charter, and with various years of experience as well. So we're truly excited to hear their perspective, and I hope this is helpful for all of you. Just a note to the audience, we'll leave a few minutes at the end for Q&A. And as you hear the panel, if you have questions that come to your mind, please feel free to use the chat, I think the Q&A function or the chat function to submit your questions, and we'll try to get those answered at the end. Okay, great. So without further ado, I would love to get a brief intro from all the panelists, starting with your name and what do you currently teach and where do you currently teach? And I would love to, I'm gonna actually use this order from East Coast to West Coast, so I'm gonna go with Grace.
Hi, my name is Grace Kim. I'm class of 21, but on paper 22 from Yale with a BA in psychology. So I am a special education teacher for grades 7 through 12 at Columbia Secondary School, which is a diverse public 6 through 12 school in Harlem of New York City. So it's a school actually built out of partnership with the New York City Department of the community and Columbia University. So it serves academically talented students in a very rigorous and demanding program for math, science, engineering. As a special education teacher, my role is to plan, write, and implement accommodations for students with disabilities. I also co-teach subjects in math, so that's like Algebra 1, geometry, college algebra, financial literacy, and science, living environment, earth science, AP psychology. It's my second year of teaching.
Wonderful, thank you. Ralph, I'll go to you next.
Thank you. My name is Ralph Pantozzi. I am teaching currently at the Kent Place School for Girls in Summit, New Jersey, where I'm a mathematics teacher. There, I've taught grades 6 through 12 and also served as a department chair and worked with students from kindergarten through 12 because our school is a K-12 school. This is my 32nd year in education, and I've been at Kent Place School for 13 years after 20 years in the public schools in New Jersey.
Wow, I think you bring the longest career in teaching amongst the panelists today, Ralph. Thank you for joining. Lindy, I'll hand it over to you.
Hello, my name is Lindy Mandel. I am actually newly moved out of the classroom. For 13 years, I taught 6th grade English and history at a charter school in Chicago. It's a Chicago Public Schools charter school. We are K through 8. I am now the instructional coach for the K through 8. So I do some deep dives with teachers and coaching cycles to help improve our teaching and student outcomes.
Great. Over to you, Hong.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pham, known affectionately by my students as Mr. Pham, like family. It's a whole thing. It ends in ILY, and ILY stands for I love you, and I call them my family. But I'm in my 8th year as a high school physics teacher. I also help out with some chemistry based here in the San Francisco Bay Area. In my 8th year tenure, I've worked at a mixture of both public charter schools and public traditional district schools. I'm currently at Concord High School in Concord, California, just east of San Francisco. And my passion is really around serving our historically underserved students and families. and making sure that we teach those students from a place of love and an asset-based way of thinking about them and storytelling about them, and making sure every student in my classroom is known, seen, and loved before we can start the learning. So I'm excited to share a bit of the perspective that I have, and I can't wait to hear from you as well.
Great. Great. I think the first question that would love to get your answer on is, like from my classmates, I know a few people who have gone into Teach for America, but I don't know that many who have actually got into the teaching profession right away after college. But really curious to hear how, what really made you to get into this profession and how you got into this profession. Maybe Ralph, could we hear from your perspective first?
Certainly. So I think the reason was mentors, teachers who had worked with me when I was a child growing up in Jersey City, New Jersey, across the Hudson River from downtown Manhattan. And they pointed the way to this being a profession that was complex, something that you needed to think about. It wasn't something you could just walk in and do. And I liked that kind of challenge. And I also liked math. And then I went to Rutgers University, where I got my bachelor's in mathematics. And while there, I joined the traditional teacher preparation program and also started working in the New Brunswick city schools, observing fourth graders learn math, and learned that fourth graders could do far more than I thought I could do in fourth grade. And so I decided to go to graduate school at the same time as getting my first teaching job, and realized soon that this was something that was for me. It was a profession I found that requires a lot of energy, and something that requires passion, something that requires creativity, and a lot of teamwork as well. So my path to get to the profession was fairly traditional. I got my teaching certificate, and as I said, I also at the same time started pursuing additional studies, and went straight into high school teaching after graduating college, and took another 12 years before I got my doctorate in math education, and have been trying to put research into practice throughout my whole career. And I've really found teaching to be something that really every day I go home, and I've taught this lesson 30 times already. I just did something this morning that I know I've done 30 times before, but it's different every time. And so the path to the profession was one for me where I wanted to find something that was challenging, something where I could work with students of all ages, and also colleagues of all ages. So that's how I got to my start.
Great. So something that you have actually been thinking about even from high school, but then you took more of a traditional path throughout. Yes. Okay, got it. Anyone else who would like to share?
I have kind of roundabout way that I got to it. And I think it's interesting because I don't think I would be as in love with teaching if I went from college into teaching. So I had an aunt that was in education psychology, and my entire life, you'd be a great teacher, you'd be a great teacher. And I wanted nothing to do with it. I went into PR, graduated with a PR degree, went into work for different agencies, and just was not happy with what I was doing. Left there. And of course, my aunt came back and said, "You'd be a really good teacher. Why don't you think about it?" And I went back and got a master's, worked in school. And I did. I loved it. But I truly believe that, for me, if I would have gone into teaching out of college, it wouldn't have been as impactful for me. So I ended up in a really great place and having that experience and be able to bring all that experience into the classroom. So it's never too late to go find what you love.
Was your aunt a teacher as well?
She was in education psychology at the University of Michigan.
I see.
Yeah, so she trained teachers and saw it.
So she knew who she was looking at and like all the right characteristics.
Turns out those mentors that you have in your life, they know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Hong, how'd you get into teaching?
So I kind of landed at teaching by accident as well. So I graduated from Yale in 2015, having majored in history, but I was pre-med at the same time. And I went the whole 9 yards with that. I took all of the required pre-med courses. I took the MCAT exam. I moonlighted while I was a college student as an EMT, driving around the ambulance and taking care of cases wherever I could to get experience. And then senior year came along and I applied to 33 medical schools, really serious about realizing this dream that I thought I had. But at the last minute, I realized that I wasn't so sure if that was my dream or maybe a dream that I thought I should have, because a lot of Yale graduates tend to do medicine or law or engineering or go into management consulting or investment banking. And I wanted to, I think, maybe fit that mold a little bit. And so per the recommendation of one of my friends who volunteered with me to we worked together in this volunteer organization called Best Buddies, where we were working with folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities, creating friendships and employment opportunities for these folks. And she recommended Teach for America as something that I could probably maybe be decent at. And so I applied to Teach for America, the 2-year commitment for teaching in a low-income, underserved community. And I was fortunate enough to teach in Richmond, California, not too far away from where I grew up in the Northern Bay area. And I fell in love with it, as hard as it was. In fact, it was the hardest thing I've ever done and continues to be. I knew looking back that it was never just about 2 years. It was about moving forward with this uncompromising belief in every child, because I've seen their potential come alive in my classroom. I know with conviction that this is what I was meant to do, because after my 3rd year of teaching, I actually had left the profession disillusioned and still enamored by these ideas of like prestige and position. And so I then decided to work as a healthcare consultant, given my pre-med background. And I remember 8 months into that job, it was at this big name company in Wisconsin, but that doesn't matter. I was eating this like cold, sad turkey sandwich and it was snowing outside. And I was looking at this spreadsheet in front of me and I thought to myself, what am I doing? I miss my students and their families, and I miss my own family. And so when I came back, I had this relived sense of conviction that teaching is not just about physics and chemistry. It's about helping this country live up to its most basic promise, and that is a fair shot for all kids. I'm first gen myself. My parents are Vietnam War refugees. I'm their oldest, and I know the impact of a high quality education on changing the trajectory of your life, and I want that for others.
Wow, that's really inspiring. I think I was hearing your Wisconsin story and I was like, I think the weather might also have contributed to your decision a little bit, but that's really inspiring. I think I love the fact that I think like Lindy, you and Hong, like you guys like both sort of went through other career, like you felt, you sort of experienced and felt like, about the profession, and then but you still made the, choice to come around, and now you're happily in this job. Grace, I know I think you also had a less of a traditional path, but we would love to hear how you got into it.
Funny enough, I think all of us have gone into an alternative teaching program. Is that correct? Where we are teaching while we are getting our certificate, from what I hear. So that's what I did. I actually started off at Yale as a computer science, stats, and data science major, but it was a summer internship after my first year that I really fell into teaching. I taught English in China. And when I returned to Yale in the fall, I was like, I need to continue doing the work that I've done this past summer. It was too good to be true. And so I enrolled in Dr. Mira Deb's Foundation in Education Studies course. That was the first time I ever had to do a classroom observation as a homework assignment. But I really fell into teaching as a profession through Professor Melissa Sheevy's course in effective secondary teaching. It's the only course currently that I know of, or when I was there, that explicitly taught students how to teach and how to become a teacher. And so my start really was during my years at Yale, and then it grew into a bigger career. Like I knew I wanted to be in teaching once I graduated. And unlike Hung, I knew that I wanted to be in New York City. So instead of doing Teach for America, I applied for the New York City Teaching Fellows. So I got to start in the classroom that September while also doing graduate school programming and getting my certificate.
Wow, great. I think while you guys were talking about how you got into it, I think you start to speak a little bit about like why it's so meaningful to you, and like why you believe that this profession is important. But would also love to hear about your view on what type of people tend to be happy and really be successful in the long run. I think this is the area where I think a lot of students or current alum thinking about the professions don't necessarily know unless they actually get into the profession and try it out for a few years. So we'd love to hear what are some of the common characteristics that you felt that worked for you, or like even from your colleagues or your friends, who have been successful and who've been really just enjoying, what are the common characteristics that you have seen? We'll take any volunteers here.
I can start. I think it's a little cliche, but I think people who really are successful have a strong why. Like know why they want to be in the classroom. I know it's very cliche, like what's your why? But have to have a really strong why. I think it's not, unfortunately, an 8 to 4 job or whatever it is. It takes up more of your life than that, whether physically working or just the mental capacity. So being able to do that, I think a really big piece for me is being able to walk into the classroom every day with a blank slate, truly believing that every student can have a good day, learn, and move in that sort of mindset. So somebody that's really able to like take things in and still move through. I really think it's important to make sure we are motivated, dedicated, and giving every student an opportunity to learn. And the only way to do that is to like truly, again, cliche, but have that why of why I'm walking in every morning to do this.
Like truly someone like purpose driven and like really believes in the value of teaching and what you're bringing to every student each day. Yeah. Ralph, Hung, Grace, anything to add here?
Yeah, I'd say that I taught for 10 years, and then I also added on, I moved into administration for a couple of years and also moved into teacher education and then worked to train new teachers. So having been a teacher myself all this time in one form or another, and also working with teachers, the people who are most happy, I found, are ones who are dedicated to continuing their learning. There are teachers who get to year 5 or year 6 and say, I know how to do this. And it turns out that it's humbling. Every year you come back in and there's something new and it doesn't work exactly as you might expect. The students are new, and you have to be able to continue seeing what it looks like from their perspective. I use phrases and cliches in class now that my students don't know because they weren't born when I started teaching. So it's someone who really is dedicated to continued learning throughout their lifetime. And also people I found, because of the intensity that I know we've already talked about that this job requires, it's the people who are happy are also ones who know how to go turn that off, right? To go home and do something different and come back and forget what happened the day before, because it might have been one of those awful days where the kids came in from something else and it just didn't work and you just, left your pen someplace else. So, coming back and just putting the work of teaching aside for a time and doing something else, doing a hobby, being with your family, doing those things. Those are the people who really last in the profession, I found.
Yeah, I would imagine that like, once you stay in the same profession for, over 10, 20 years, you're really educating the generation, multiple generation in the United States. I mean, it's quite incredible if you think about it. And I mean, the mode of teaching has also, has changed a lot with COVID, and I'm sure that also needs a lot of like learning itself, as you mentioned, and like to be adaptive. And so that really truly resonates with me. Han, Grace, anything to add here?
Julie, you touch upon like a lot of the changes. So being able to strike a balance between being adaptable and flexible, but also being an organized planner. So for instance, you need to be responsive to the teacher, to the students that you are in your classroom. It's a lot of improv work and like problem solving on the fly with limited resources and time, and integrating new technology, adapting to COVID, everything thrown at you at once, and having a plan A, B, C, D at times, but at the same time, like having fun with it, not taking yourself too seriously, and like being able to juggle all of that at once. And you get to meet a whole bunch of people at the same time. So someone who you don't necessarily have to be an extrovert, but someone who's willing to collaborate with a huge array of folks. Like you have your colleagues, the parents of students, administrators, community like leaders, students, and you need to be eager to like constantly learn and improve and take feedback from others.
I love all of that has been shared so far. And I would like to add to that. I think one of the hallmark characteristics of people who tend to do really well and stay well in the profession for a long time have a balanced perspective about the profession as a whole, in addition to what they do day to day. And so I think I want to name that, it's very real that we're starting to have nationwide conversations, and they've been happening about the different types of experiences teachers are having in different schools and districts and states in regards to their satisfaction, workplace conditions, resources available to them, and the things that they're experiencing in the classroom in terms of student dynamics and student behavior. All of those are real. I'm very fortunate to have finally found my fourth school in my 8th tenure of teaching that I think is my forever school in the same zip code where I work, with a really supportive staff and compensation that is really aligned with my goal of financial well-being. And I think it's important for teachers and aspiring teachers to think about what they can control and to exercise their agency as much as they can in order to build sort of as good of a possible these combinations of variables that can make teaching sustainable for them. So the right school, the right staff, the right subjects, the right grade level. A lot of the things that are out of our control can be difficult to navigate, but the things that we can control, I think, can be balanced with those external factors so that we can have these experiences day to day with our students that are enjoyable and sustainable. I think ultimately to teachers who fundamentally and always believe that every single student can learn and that every single student deserves to be known and seen and loved tend to be really happy because they're having fun and laughing often with their students. And then just giving themselves, teachers, and giving others, especially students, a fresh start every day, because some days are harder than others. But I think as teachers, we need to be model learners as well, learning that it's okay to try again and again because the sun still rises again and again.
Yeah, that's also an interesting point that you brought up on. Other than the intrinsic sort of the characteristic that people have, all the external factors like what schools do you work at, and all the different types of stakeholders that you need to manage, maybe the culture or the type of student, or all these things actually varies and could really affect how happy you are and how well you are doing your job as a teacher. So it's a good point to bring up. I would actually love to hear about, given the sort of the recent evolution in the teaching, with a lot of the virtual teaching coming in place, and I know, Ralph, you mentioned that the best people are who do well are people who pursue continuous learning, and I think I'm seeing one of the question in the chat asking about what are some of the biggest needs of teacher when it comes to professional learning and professional development. We'd love to actually touch upon this question before we move on to the next set of question. What from your experience in the last couple of years, like what do you think is actually most important in terms of the professional learning or any professional development that you have done or you have seen people do?
Yeah, I'll say that one of the key elements of teaching, it might seem evident on face value, is communication, and how you as a teacher are listening to students and accessing what their ideas and finding out what their all the talents and capabilities that they're bringing to the classroom. It's sometimes easy to see the students only for their deficits, and that's certainly a conversation that we have in the United States, where test scores are always being bemoaned in the media. So in terms of professional development, learning how to communicate with a person who might be of quite a different age from you and coming in from different backgrounds, and learning their perspectives. That's not easy professional development to do. It takes a lot of reading. It also takes a lot of interacting with other people and learning those other perspectives. So I could talk about all the technical aspects, but I found particularly when I was teaching remotely, not being in there with the room had me really focus on how do I communicate with them and how do I establish two-way communication, because understanding what the student knows, no matter what subject you're teaching, is the foundation of what actions you're going to take. So professional development around communication, I think it's a broad sort of statement I'm making, but this kind of question of how do I know what the student knows, and how do I help them communicate it back to me so that I can make the right teaching actions.
Got it. Yeah, I feel like that's also applicable to my job. I'm a consultant, and I do a lot of Zoom meetings with clients and other team members. And I always also think about, like, is my message actually conveyed to the other side of the video? And, like, what is the other person thinking? Like, do I need to ask other question, or do I need to explain something more to get my point across? So yeah, it's definitely applicable to the world that we live in currently. Any particular areas of learning that you've been pursuing that you think it might be meaningful to mention?
Well, I would just say, look at technology. I think the biggest thing for me for professional development is technology for the sake of technology does nothing. And really making sure that like teachers are trained on the technology they're given and trained how to use the curriculum. Because if you give somebody something, it's like, oh, it does all these great things, but you don't know how to access it, then it's just a waste, and it's just using it to use it. So I think that's something that I always try to really dig deep into those curriculum and technology and really figure out how to use it so that it doesn't just become one extra step, which I think oftentimes is why technology isn't used as much in the classroom, because there's a barrier of knowing how to. So I think that's really important to keep teachers up on how to use it, especially as teachers come from so many different generations too, like what you've done in the past and how you learned is, or how I learned is very different too. So I think that's super important.
Grace,
I might be shifting gears slightly, but in terms of professional development, I am not a social worker or a counselor, and I think this might answer another question also in the Q&A, but post-pandemic, we have a greater focus on the social and emotional development of children, and personally, I would love to get more support on how to deal with things that are, as Pham said, like completely out of our control. Things are happening to these students live and so pervasive on every aspect of their being. Who knows? There isn't really a clear answer to that, but I think if we are to support those who are teaching the students, then the students can also get more widely affected in a positive direction. Lindy, you talk about like technology. A lot of these solutions that are coming out are like SEL, social and emotional learning modules, things, tech on tools, but then there isn't training on how to implement them effectively with students in a meaningful way. So merging all of those ideas together, I think, would be the best way to help move this profession towards a post-pandemic world.
Yeah, so like something that there isn't really a clear answer how to pursue, but hopefully there is more of a clear path where teachers can get more support in terms of understanding the area. Okay. Hong, anything to add here?
Sure, I'll add a bit from my personal perspective. So as I mentioned earlier, I teach high school physics and chemistry, but my interest in teaching children like ranges from K through 12th grade. And I'm really excited about sharing science with everyone. I think physics and chemistry in particular belong to everyone. I think physics and chemistry and science more generally should be accessible and democratized for everyone beyond these sort of tropes of them being difficult or too mathy or behind these gates reserved for people who have a certain background or know-how. So having lived and grown up in the Bay Area, I've realized that not all children in the Bay Area are prepared for the world that awaits them after high school, which leaves me puzzled because the region is known to be leading the country in innovation. So what I usually do during the summer is I try to have like these teacher internships or externships at local tech companies or university research labs so that I can get firsthand experience with what students are really going to need and face after high school. And I've done a couple of those in previous summers. So I did one particular experience at Genentech, Google, and Stanford Engineering. And I say that because I am now fortunate enough to bring my experiences back into the classroom to make them practical and engaging. And so the lessons are real world relevant to students. Students are at the center of their learning and they're constructing their own understanding of the world around them rather than me just being like a sage on the stage. Learning has really transformed into me being a guide on the side, where I'm taking on the role of a facilitator and students are driving their own learning. I think if teachers more generally had training on how to take the workload off of them and make students do most of the heavy lifting in the class, which I think they should be anyway, that could really turn the tables in terms of who's doing the work and who's doing the learning.
Sounds like your like experience outside of teaching and working in different companies here must have really helped to sort of bring in the outside world relevance to teaching. Yeah, but I guess not all teachers would have that experience. So is there a path where like teachers can get this sort of experience, or do you think that it's something that can be like taught to teachers, or is that, you know, what do you have any thoughts on that, Hong?
So I'll share a specific company that has helped me with these opportunities. So here in the Bay Area, the company is called Ignited. So it's Ignite and then ED at the end. And what they do is they connect math and science, but also non-math and science educators with these opportunities based here in the Bay Area. And they're not always in person. Some of them are remote, which can be really accessible to teachers outside of state. You get a really generous $10,000 stipend for your work during the summer, walk away with coaching around developing a unit or a lesson plan to bring back to your kids as well. Plus that firsthand experience that you can then embed into the rest of your curriculum and instruction. So that's one specific resource that I can share. I'm hoping that there are similar sort of resources or outlets that exist for teachers beyond California too.
Got it. Thank you for sharing. I think we talked a bit about, you know, the type of people who do well and like what kind of learnings or professional development may be helpful for teachers as they develop their career especially in the last couple of years. We'd love to hear about sort of thinking more of a longer term. What is some of the typical, maybe it's not typical, maybe it really depends on, you know, case by case, but from your perspective, what is the career path that you have seen that a lot of people take? You know, it could be that you stay at one school and teaching one subject for a few years. Maybe you take on another role at the same school, but just would love to hear about what are some of the career paths that's available for people who enter this profession. Ralph, should we go with you first?
Sure. Yeah, I think you touched on an important aspect of this. Some teachers are happy they become an 8th grade or geometry teacher in their first year, and they will like to do that for the entire year, their entire career. They'll stay in one school and they'll do that. And I don't have data on how often that is still the case, but what I do find is that the school that you're at and the context and the team, as others have said here, is so important. So if you're at a school that is thinking about the problems of teaching and the problems of learning, and I'm talking about problems in like in a good way, like how do we help students who are coming into the school with different levels of knowledge about certain subjects and different life experiences and different cultural backgrounds, and students who struggle more with one subject versus another. If you've got a school where the teachers are working together and see this as a common issue, it's not just, hey, I'm in the classroom, I'm teaching math, it doesn't matter what the English teacher is doing, then those are the schools that generally succeed more with students of all backgrounds. So that being said, within schools, you can stay in one school and then find different opportunities to have a career path that isn't just you in the classroom. It's you working on different committees and you working with collaborations that might take you outside of the school and learn something. Because if you're a teacher, maybe you never do anything else. That's what you do. But doing professional development that takes you into a scientist lab and learn things from there. So, it's not just pathways of moving up. There are different initiatives that the school might be involved in, and I can speak from my career that's been so essential that learning from how an English teacher approaches teaching is something that has clearly has really influenced my career path. And the question is, I think I went into teacher education. I went into administration for a little while. There's possibilities of working on curriculum. There's all sorts of other educational institutions that you can connect with as well that will enrich your own experience and give you your own career pathway. It doesn't have to be moving out of the classroom, although that's something that a good number of people do.
And sort of a follow-up question on that is, when you think about, oh, like maybe I want to try the administration role, or I want to try other area, I want to take on another role at the school, like is that something that usually like you sort of get an offer from school when you build tenure at the school, or is that something that you find the opportunity and then you raise hand and you ask around?
Yeah, it does depend on the school, but I found that it's often you have to seek out those opportunities. You have to look for them. The issue came up in the chat about making more money. One way to make more money is to move to another school, right? That has a need for what you're doing. So yeah, you have to seek out those opportunities, and someone might not tap you on that because teaching can be very isolating. So finding
it's a bit more like self-driven.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, that's helpful. Lindy, what's your experience been?
Well, just to add on to Ralph too, like I think the more times you put your hat sort of in the bucket, right, or you're involved in something outside of just your classroom, you show leadership, you need to still sort of seek it out, but oftentimes, it grows into, which is sort of what happened with me. I was in the classroom. I love teaching. I mean, I've taught for 13 years. I love being with the students. And it's actually something right now I'm struggling with, not being with students every day as being the coach, but I realized how much I was getting involved in helping other teachers create plans, make their classrooms run smoother, or how to increase engagement. And so I really, pushed to get this position, and it happened to be there. But even multiple times I've gone to my administration and be like, I think this is a position we need, and come up with my own. Now there's not money for it. But even just doing that, like, hey, I see a need in this spot. Can I help, or can we create this? And that's sort of how I got to where I am. I also just added one more thing. Like, I think, especially in schools I've been in and with friends, it's like, being in the classroom for however many, your career isn't always looked at as like positive. Like, well, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? And I think that's something that has changed, and I wish would change back, because I think that it's amazing for teachers that want to stay and be there. And it's just, so that's something that I've noticed a lot lately. Well, what are you going to do next? What are you going to do when you go out of the classroom? It's like, you don't have to. You can stay and teach for the rest of your life, and that's great.
Yeah, or as you said, you can look for opportunities or of gap and like take initiative and suggest a role or even take on that role. And it really sounds like a more of an independent career, like where you need to be very like self-driven to find your like carve your own path.
Lindy, I really appreciated you mentioning towards the end that teaching could be an end destination in and of itself. There doesn't necessarily have to be like a next step or what are you going to do afterwards sort of conversation, which I think is often the perspective that people have about teaching, that it's just a stepping stone to something else. But there's so much to do and so much to learn. And the work of teaching is so difficult and so necessary that there's always a different perspective or take that you can have on it that can really push you as a professional as well. That being said, I think there are ways to stretch your muscles as a professional without having to leave the classroom if you want to add something on. But a lot of those opportunities, like Ralph and Lindy mentioned, require self-advocacy. Some just specific examples are things like being an instructional leader or a science department chair, or the head of certain committees or groups, if you have the capacity for that, and then kind of branching out from there. But I just love that message, Lindy, of like how, no, just teaching can be enough, and teaching is a big deal. So period.
Yeah, I'll jump in and add that there are so many opportunities, more opportunities now for teachers to do things essentially remotely that might even add to your salary. Like writing things. I ended up writing a book at one point, and there are awards you can get, grants you can get. You can bring money into your school to support your work. You can get things published, your lessons published on different websites. I was able to write something for Science Friday, which was really exciting a couple years back. And I also won $25,000 from the National Museum of Math for writing one lesson. So there's lots of things teachers can do, right? To go out and either make, but it's not just about the money, right? That's good too. But to do things that impact you outside the classroom. Like I was in the classroom all that time, but I was impacting students outside the classroom. And in the era of technology, that's the good part of technology. I found that you can connect with teachers from around the world. So again, straight from the classroom, right now I'm collaborating with college professors to help them understand how high school students think, so that that transition between high school and college is the best, is a smooth one. So yeah, there's so many things you can do even while teaching. Again, remember to take time off and do other things, but there's lots of things that you don't have to be just a teacher, right? Like that's something I've always heard. Like why are you going into teaching? There's so many other things you could do. But as all of you have said, this is an impactful profession, and it's not just being in the classroom speaking to students every day where you can enrich your own experience.
Ralph, I love that spirit of like, yes, and so like I love teaching because after 2:30, I have the flexibility to do a lot with my afternoons and evenings, which I think in an entry level position at a corporate job, I would not have. So, for instance, in my afternoons and evenings, I get to work on things like being on the board of First Gen Yale or on board of Yale alumni educators, like really giving back to Yale community in our own ways. I have the summers off, and so I run like a water park snack business in summer. So like there's a lot of flexibility and things that you can do. You don't necessarily have to ever depart from education, even if you're not in education, depending on your personal goals. Maybe teaching for 2 to 3 years is part of your career in being a better curriculum writer or better consultant, a better administrator, like an ed tech builder. We can tell as teachers those who've taught in the classroom and then go on to make a technology versus those who have never been in the classroom and make technology. So there's a lot of like great or like overlapping Venn diagrams when we talk about the teaching profession, because it's not just like you are a teacher and that's all that is to you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Yeah, it seems like there's a very like diverse aspects that you can sort of shape in your teaching career and like all the areas adjacent to teaching that you can develop and you can pursue. Not to discourage that like a teaching as a profession can be the end career, but just so that like our audience can hear what are some of the other options or other like career paths that people usually take. We have this question around, if you don't stay in this teaching profession until retiring, like what are some of the exit opportunities that you have seen?
I'd love to add one thing I think teachers are great at are project management. So handling and juggling many tasks, many people at once. So that could be HR, project management, some sort of corporate training, anything that requires like people and tasks and paperwork, bureaucracies. We're all good at that. So it doesn't necessarily, you don't necessarily have to stay with nonprofit and advocacy work, which I think is more popular. You could definitely go into the private sector. And I've seen a lot of friends who've done the TFA route, Teach for America route, and then go into private sector and be really successful because they have experience working with a diverse array of people.
I actually have one example that popped into my head too. One of the associate partner that I worked with a few months back, he also was previously a K-12 teacher. I think he actually taught kindergarten kids, and then he actually said that his experience teaching in kindergarten actually helped him being a really great consultant because he's able to articulate clearly to people. And one tip that I still sticks to me is that also like he makes sure that when we have meetings, people are fed and no one is hungry, and that also helps people to listen and pay attention during the meeting. We'd love to hear if you have seen other people pursue any other interesting paths after teaching profession.
Well, something I'm looking at myself right now through work with national organizations is to influence policy. So teachers are often the last people that get asked about teaching policy, which is an interesting thing. But there are different opportunities that different organizations they want teachers to come in and be part of this conversation. Like, why are we doing this with schools? How do laws end up being passed around schools? And certainly in the current climate, we need more teacher voices, and there are ways of doing that. And you can do that from the classroom, or I've seen people just completely move into that area and say, I've been a teacher. I know what this is like in the classroom, and that carries a lot of weight. So that's one particular pathway that those kinds of teacher voices are so important.
Yeah, and definitely very relevant. Anything to add?
Funny enough, Julie, I was actually going to mention consultant, and then I heard your story. It's perfect because I have had a lot of friends who were previously teachers and were able to successfully transition into consulting because of their ability to learn their audience, learn what their needs are, learn the material that their audience needs very quickly, and then bring all of that together. So I was excited to hear your anecdote. Surprisingly, I've also had friends and acquaintances, whether they were teaching math or science or non-STEM subjects in the K through 12 realm, transition into tech related careers as well. One in particular that I think about often is data analytics and data science. A lot of people underestimate how much data there is that teachers analyze daily, weekly, monthly, especially with coworkers, to figure out what's going on in the data, trends and patterns, so that we can use data to inform our instruction and support our most underserved learners. And then that gets translated really well into many different other roles beyond just data analytics and data science as well. Project management involves a lot of working with data. So I think for those teachers considering transitioning into more corporate or techie roles, I think they have a lot more to offer than they usually think.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I think it as you said, it also depends on like what's the area that you're sort of like responsible for. And as you said, if someone's teaching like or like even as I guess as a non-STEM teacher, you're still handling a lot of data. But even if you're even more, if you're like teaching like a STEM subject, then even more you're like qualified to actually pursue some of the other careers in the area. We're closing the last 10 minutes of the panel. I want to actually end sort of the main questions before we dive into the Q&A. One question that I had, instead of asking you like what type of people tend to be unhappy, since we already heard, we now know, who are the type of people who tend to be very happy in this career. So I think, it's automatically going to be the opposite, but we'd love to hear if there's one thing that you would like to fix from, in terms of the teaching profession, and what would that be? Something that, you would like rather not do, or something, that you just don't like about the career. This could be anything. It could be hour, it could be pay, it could be I don't know, like maybe additional work that you need to do, or
I mean, I think we should make millions of dollars, but that's there you go. I think that it has to do with money still, and not necessarily like I wish we could change the funding for support, because I think everyone sort of mentioned after COVID, like the SEL support needed, and we have so much money goes into higher education, and these companies want really great employees, but they're not giving the money to where it starts. And so that's what I wish we could change, is having more support within K-12 classrooms to start kids on the right path early, as opposed to trying to fix it later.
I see the other panelists are really thinking through this.
Yeah, the thing I think a lot about as I've started to look at policy, the policy areas in education, is thinking about how much there are these separate worlds, I think, as Lindy was referring to, that don't really connect with each other. And there's so much, what frustrates me is that there's information that I could use in my classroom that doesn't get to me, right? That would make me more effective. And establishing more collaborations between people who are researching in the areas that you're teaching, and so much academic work is done in the learning sciences, and I don't get to see a lot of it. And I would love to have more university and school partnerships where we just continually refine things, and we make things better, because we take that data, and not just test score data, but we take learning data, looking at how students learn, and then having people make their university careers based around this school succeeded, as opposed to simply coming up with more research projects. There's lots of funding out there for things at the NSF level and the state level. Feeding that back into the classroom and being able to say, wow, this school succeeded because some students can succeed. We often aren't providing them the resources that they need. And often that's money, right? Both for salaries and school resources, but often we're not providing the information that a school needs to succeed. And so, that's my criticism of the whole teaching profession right now, is that we need to be more connected to other aspects of the educational enterprise.
Both Ralph and Lindy kind of like touched on more global aspects. I think on a more local, individual school level, a lot of teachers are leaving the profession because of a lack of support from their administration or their district or some other authority. And I think if the teaching profession is here to stay, or especially diverse teachers are to be supported in schools, I wish there was more support on more of a structural level of the work that they do that's like radically changing how students are learning. So there's also not really, Ralph, you're a policy person, please interject if there is a solution to this. But on a whole, I think the teaching profession is growing in this like feeling that there's not as much support from administrative level because of maybe the excessive paperwork, maybe the focus on test scores rather than the human potential, who knows. I think I just see too many teachers who are going on YouTube and TikTok and talking about how like lack of support is making them leave. And that's just so sad because they could be some of the greatest teachers.
This is not something necessarily that I think the education profession itself can fix, but I think something that I wish is for more visibility around the things that are going well, the bright spots, the joys in the classroom, the moments where teachers have belly laughs with their students, the things that are making teachers stay, the things that just align and work really well. I wish there was more conversation around that, more visibility around that. Oftentimes the conversation about the profession can skew towards the other direction. And so I think talking about what's working is equally important, not to dismiss what very real needs exist, but to kind of have a more balanced perspective with, yeah, these are the great things that are happening too. And these are the reasons why some people are choosing to stay.
Thank you all for sharing. I think that that's actually all the questions that I have for the main panel itself. Thank you everyone for joining the panel today and sharing your experience. I'm sure this candid view will help, you know, the Yale students, alums, and friends of Yale's to make the informed decision as a teaching as a profession. I think we have 5 minutes. I would love to actually just go through some of the questions that we have. I see that some of you guys have already answered them. That's great. But let me just see like some of the, I think COVID one, we might have already sort of covered. This one is interesting. Is game playing technology-based or not, which is increasingly familiar to students, likely to be a larger component of teaching and learning and also assessment? Any takers on that?
I think gameplay is a great formative assessment tool, maybe not a summative assessment tool. If you're not in education, it means they're like checkpoints. They're great ways to like check for students' understanding and learning in the moment. It's a great external motivator in getting students to learn and to get engaged with material and work with classmates. But it may not be like the best way to assess students' learning at the end of a unit, perhaps, or like what they've learned cumulatively, that's a hard word. Mostly because it's not as complex as perhaps like a project that focuses on real life solutions could be.
I think it also depends on like what it is, right? And if it's, you know, something that gives good data, and we use a lot of the game-based programs to like differentiate and to help students sort of what they need. So give them the what they need piece of the day. So it can be like tailored to that student outside of regular instruction. And that keeps them engaged in that and, you know, helps to grow the knowledge that they need or that they're missing.
This is something that a mode that's a bit like being used commonly right now in your teaching profession. Like, do you use this like regularly in classroom setting?
Like game-based?
Yeah,
there's a lot of them out there. Some are more effective than others, and some give you better data than others.
Mm-hmm.
We go back to like everything is so test-based, and if you look at a schedule for our school, every single minute is planned out for what the students are doing. And so it's a nice break to give the students, but also have them continue learning. And it really, really helps with, you know, if we're doing, we have a time called What I Need. And during that time, students are learning sort of things that they've missed, right? So a piece of 4th grade, a piece of 3rd grade, and they're in 6th grade. And really giving them that material straight out, it's just not going to engage them. So in that kind of situation, the game-based learning is really helpful because even though that 6th grader needs that 3rd grade piece, it's still young for them, right? And it's just not going to be as engaging. So we use game-based for those types of things, as opposed to like actual instruction is usually not game-based for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. We have 1 minute left actually.
I'm trying to answer a few questions in the chat, and I just want to thank everybody who attended tonight. We don't see you, but I want to thank you for all these questions and your interest in the teaching profession.
Yeah, this is actually like one of the more engaged panel. Actually, we don't usually receive this many questions. Yeah, I think a lot of these are actually. This is a really deep question. How do you deal with the peer-based perception of scalings and ellipticism in an inner city bureaucracy? I'll let panelists answer this on the if you guys would like to actually answer this, you feel free to type the answer. I think we're actually at 9 p.m. Eastern right now. So for now, I think we can close the panel, and I would love for I will invite the audience to please share the news and make sure like other people who are interested in this career can also view this video even after the panel today. It's recorded and it will be on YouTube. And we look forward to seeing you in the next panel. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.